Joining us now with more on how the Chinese IPO landscape may shape up in the rest of 2013 is Georgi Dimitrov. He's a senior financial analyst at Privco, a New York-based company that conducts research on companies' IPOs. Georgi, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Michelle. Thank you.
So investors really giving light in the box, a big open-armed welcome today. The stock up 22%. Does this suggest that the market is now ready to accept further Chinese IPOs?
Absolutely. We at Privco have looked at the light-in-the-box IPO as a test case for Chinese IPOs in the future. There's definitely a pent-up supply of Chinese companies, and with the pricing at $9.50 and 8.3 million shares, and as you said, investor appetite being at record highs for these companies, it definitely is a strong signal to other Chinese companies who are waiting in the wings. The window has been opened, definitely.
Now, there have been in the past concerns about the financials, regulatory concerns with regards to Chinese companies. Recently, there has been an agreement made between the U.S. auditing authority and Chinese companies for more transparency. Is this still an issue?
Absolutely. It all goes back to the wrangle between the SEC, which demanded that the Big Four accounting firms would not use Chinese affiliates to look at the books of Chinese companies, with the Chinese regulators then going back and saying that they would not produce documents that were source documents for these financials. And there's been a recent cranking down of that policy, but it's still an issue that is facing these problems. On the flip side, the companies that are IPOing have met higher regulatory standards, like light in the box. So you know that the cream of the crop is really rising towards the American IPO market.
So U.S. authorities are still not satisfied with the Chinese auditing firm practices?
Well, Michelle, there's a reason that the auditing firm of light in the box is Deloitte. They are using the Big Four accounting firms, and that is how the IPOs are occurring nowadays.
What about the fact that China recently suspended its own IPO market because of the government wanting to ensure that there are better accounting and legal practices in place? Does that not bolster investor confidence?
Absolutely. There's pressure coming from multiple regions, not just the SEC, but also regulators in China. And you've seen a push towards Hong Kong markets, although the problem there has been that of the IPOs on that market, about 2/3 of them in 2013 alone are underwater from their listing price. So companies are looking towards the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ as a potential ground where they can raise capital.
Well, you mentioned the Hong Kong market, and one of the big companies, Alibaba, has been saying, hey, you know what? It may list in Hong Kong rather than in the US on the NYSE or on the NASDAQ. Has the US markets lost some of their appeal?
I wouldn't go so far, and I think we at Privco wouldn't go so far as to say that. I think that Alibaba is a different beast. It's a company that just recently is looking at a market capitalization of $70 billion if it lists. And so the Hong Kong market, for it in particular, is probably more alluring. But it's really a case-by-case basis.
Well, the two IPOs that went public in 2012 have done phenomenally well. We have
Absolutely.
VIP Shop Holdings up 353% since the IPO, and social platform YY up 161%. So what trend is this signaling, and which other companies do we have in the pipeline to list in the US?
That's a great question. The trend is that there is new appetite from investors for these Chinese companies, and it's definitely a hat tip to regulatory efforts that have occurred in the past year. At the same time, at Privco, we've been looking at a few companies, the first being Qunar.com, which would potentially list on American markets, and it will take advantage of kind of the groundswell of travel interest within China with a developing middle class. And the other one that we've really focused in on is 3G, which is a mobile application that allows communications between mobile devices. So those might definitely fall within the trend that has occurred in the past with these companies.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Georgi Dimitrov, Senior Financial Analyst at Privco.